Hello everyone. After an eventful trip to France in which our campervan died, it's great to be back for this EdTech podcast special to get you warmed up for our new season kicking off on the 6th of August. This week you'll hear from one of EdTech's greatest mind addicts, Maren Deepwell, the CEO of the Association for Learning Technology, or more commonly known as OLT. We talk Sherlock Holmes, equality, government policy and open education. But before all of that, events. If you're London-based, join us at some summer EdTech drinks on the 22nd of August. Venue is TBC, so if you have one, why not let us know? The OLT Conference is on the 5th to the 7th of September in Liverpool this year. And finally, the Innovate Edtech Conference takes place in London on the 11th of November, looking at the rise of learner experience. All links to register are in the show notes. What's next? On the 6th of August, we kick off an entirely new season of content for the second half of 2017. ASU GSV Summit are kindly supporting, and topics include games-based learning, 21st century skills, China, design thinking and educational reform. Don't miss out. If you're not subscribed to the podcast already, make sure you get set up and tell your friends. Otherwise, great to be back. Thanks for listening. Send us your comments as always via @podcastedtech on Twitter and enjoy the rest of the summer. Yay! Hi Maren, how are you?
Yeah, I'm really good.
Goody good. Hi, I can see you there. I took July off from doing the podcast, so I was just spending the second half getting myself ready for the second half of the year, and the first half I was on holiday. So yeah, that was nice. It was nice, but we went to France and we went in a camper van, but our camper van broke down and pretty much died in France, and then we came back.
Oh no.
Yeah, we came back in like a series of 3 hire cars. So there's a lot of logistics involved, which was a bit of a shame, but that's just, you know, it happens sometimes, so never mind. And whereabouts are you going on holiday?
I'm doing the opposite because I travel a lot for work. So I'm actually really looking forward to not be traveling for a while. And I'm doing all sorts of things with family and seeing some friends. But yeah, my holidays are usually about doing the opposite of traveling.
Yeah, no, having just experienced what I have, I can definitely see the appeal of that.
Yeah, and I've got a cat whom I don't see enough of. Yeah, generally have a lot to be getting on with, but it's nice to get a break from my inbox. So I like having proper breaks, and I don't really work kind of at weekends or out of hours. And I'm one of those people who really doesn't find it difficult to leave their inbox behind when they have time off. So
then you come back and you're much more refreshed and have like a clear head about how you're going to go about things as well.
Yeah, no, it's good. But I'm actually quite excited about this today because I've never done like a podcast. I've done lots of different types of interviews, but this is kind of like a different medium. And I listen to quite a lot of podcasts. But
what are your favourite podcasts to listen to?
So I listen to a lot of comedy. So I listen to a lot of like Richard Herring's podcast, for example, and Bridget Christie, and sort of quite a lot of sort of comedians. But I also listen to, so I think the main EdTech sort of podcast that I listen to is probably the Contrafabulists with Ken Lane and Audrey Waters.
Okay, yeah, because they had the one, I can't remember what the title was called. It was another one with Audrey Waters, unless they've changed their title.
Yeah, they have. It used to be called the Tech Gypsies.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, so it's the same one but a different title.
Yeah, it's the same podcast, I think. But yeah, they've changed it to called the Contrafabulists, and I listen to them. But it's different because it's the same people each week. It's just mostly the two of them, talking to each other. Yeah. So I think it's a bit different to, podcasts where it's like a different person or different guests. So yeah, I enjoy that.
Yeah, I think Audrey Waters is very interesting, and I like a lot of her Medium posts and how she kind of sort of dissects some of the, what's happening. Haven't yet met her, but it's on my to-do list.
I agree. I'm a fan. So I like her work a lot, and I think it's important to have some critical voices. So it's good to reflect sometimes at what we're doing.
Cool. So, yes, it's great to be back with the EdTech podcast after a little break. And so I hope everyone's had a fantastic July. I'm delighted today to be speaking with Maren Deepwell, who's the Chief Executive of the Association for Learning Technology. So welcome, Maren.
Thank you very much, Sophie. Nice to be here.
If people are listening in and they're not so familiar with OLT, the Association for Learning Technology, can you give us a kind of overview of, how it's developed and also how it differs to existing organisations, so things like GISC or Universities UK?
Sure, yeah. So the association was established in 1993, so next year we'll be celebrating our 25th birthday. And we are the leading professional body for learning technology professionals in the UK. So what we do, I think we can easily break down into kind of three chunks.
Yeah.
So one of the main things we do is around increasing the impact of learning technology for public benefit. So, for example, we publish research in learning technology, which is an open access journal. So our members can disseminate kind of, evidence of what works and the newest kind of innovations in their learning, teaching or assessment. So it's one area that we are very active in. Then a second thing that we do is to provide recognition of and representation for our members at a national level. So we work across all parts of the UK, and we have member groups across the whole of the country, and also have members internationally. But our policy work is very focused on some of the key issues in the UK, and we also run Learning Technologies of the Year Awards. We provide strategic information to our members, and we have a really strong network. Because we're one of the longest established professional bodies in this area, it's really a growing community that continues to kind of evolve, but there is a lot of history there as well.
And so how's it kind of changed since when did you become the chief exec?
So I've been OLT CEO for 5 years now, so since 2012, but I've actually worked for OLT for nearly 10 years.
Yeah.
So it's been a while. And I think the association has changed quite a lot. So when we were established in 1993, we were a much smaller community. So we had, obviously to begin with, only a few hundred members. Now we have 2,500. But also, I think the idea of what it means to work in learning technology has really changed. So I think nowadays we're seeing so many more job roles that have technology as a key component, while I think, 25 years ago, there were far fewer.
So it's specifically a technology responsibility and more about how technology cuts through all of the job roles.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I mean, that's how professionalization, I think, is changing. But I think also, while, using technology in learning, teaching and assessment is part of more people's roles than before, and particularly senior roles in different university, colleges and school contexts, I think one thing that really hasn't changed is our need for experts who can help us make decisions about technology. So, that starts with purchasing and choosing the right tools, to procurement and implementation, and then advising academic staff on how to best use it in the classroom. And I think that role is becoming more and more crucial, because what we want to achieve with learning technology is becoming more and more ambitious. And the impact we expect it to make for learners in all contexts is becoming greater. So I think in some ways I've joined OLT in a really interesting time, because the asks that we have of technology and its potential are becoming greater. And I think there's more need now, or a very continued need, for a critical kind of informed voice that helps you take the right decisions. So yeah, it's interesting times for sure.
It's interesting times, and I know that I was lucky enough to come along to one of your evenings after an event in London, and the people there, it was very interesting because, like you say, they exist, or it felt like, on that kind of fringe between a real fascination and engagement with technology and how it could be used, but also a real understanding and caution around, how it could also be abused. So asking the right questions and remaining critical. And yeah, it was a really interesting group of people there. Although I didn't manage to do any bowling, which was a bit of a shame, but that's for next time.
Well, I got comprehensively beaten by anyone that I was bowling with, so definitely not one of my strengths. But I think the third part of what we do is all around professionalization, leading professionalization of research and practice in learning technology. And I think the critical perspective you just mentioned is key for many of our members, because it's certainly an advantage to be enthusiastic about all the shiny new toys. I'm a real geek at heart, and I love new technologies, love trying them out. And I think many people who work in learning technology feel that way. But I think we also need to keep in mind, some of the consequences that are maybe not so apparent when you have a shiny new tool in your hand. For example, what sort of information does it collect about you or your learners? How is that administrated? What are the algorithms, or what are the administrative processes that shape how you can use the technology? How can we build a responsible relationship between technology and its users, and what are our responsibilities of mediating that? I think there's so much vested interest in the edtech industry in general to build a narrative around how technology is a solution to problems, and how it's kind of sometimes portrayed as the answer to all of our prayers, making education more efficient or more profitable or more accessible, whatever it is that you're after. But I think what we're finding more and more is that we need to also reflect on what impact it has in terms of our data, our ability to understand how it functions as it becomes more complicated, and also how we can make it accessible to a really wide part of the workforce, which is a huge challenge.
Yeah, I like the first strand of what you do in terms of public benefit, because you forget when you're constantly going to events or talking to like-minded people that if I'm at a dinner party and I say I work in EdTech, then probably 90% of the table won't know what that term means, or there are so many facets to it, and then all the complications on both sides. So yeah, it's interesting once you get outside of the kind of bubble you exist within.
I think so. And I mean, I personally am really passionate about working in the open and for public benefit, but I think it's also what I maybe haven't mentioned, and I should, is that we're an independent charity. So we're funded solely through our membership subscriptions and events. And being an independent body is quite different from maybe being a government-funded agency or being industry-funded, because it means that we can act on our members' wishes, and they are very strongly in support of openness and working to exchange knowledge and share research for public benefit. So that's kind of whom we serve directly. And I think it gives out a unique voice in the edtech sector in the UK.
Definitely. I mean, one of my questions was going to be, when you were talking about the growth of the organisation, it comes at a time when others sort of tracking edtech are really suffering, trying to work out how to go about funding, and the injection of money into their services going as well. So it's membership.
Yeah, I think it's a hard time for everyone, and obviously we're feeling that as well. I don't think we are isolated from the hard times that the sectors are experiencing, but we are a very small and lean core organization. So we employ 6 staff. Most of us work part-time, and we're a distributed team all across the UK. So we're actually a very lean operation in terms of what we do, but our real strength lies in our membership. And most of what we do, like our events or our publications, are all led by volunteer effort. And I think the participation of our members at all levels, both in terms of what we do and what we stand for and how we're governed and what we say to government, is really key to me. I think that's something really powerful.
And on that front, I mean, if you had a message to government that you think your members would like you to ask, or something that they could do that would improve the working circumstances of your members, do you know what that would be as well?
Ooh, I think that's quite a long list. But it's interesting that you mention it, because the Department for Education has just set up a new consultation process for EdTech policy. The last couple of weeks, they've held stakeholder engagement groups, and I've just had a conversation today with one of their officials. And I think the questions policymakers are facing all the time, are about how to make effective policy, how to make effective recommendations that can be implemented on a national level when the landscape you operate in keeps changing. Right? The technology keeps changing, the tools we use keep changing, and it's very difficult for government as a kind of body to deal with that. So I think many of our members who've worked in the sector for a long time see every time there is one of these initiatives that things are reinvented. So each time we establish, is there really evidence that it works? How are we going to avoid making an equation between getting rid of people and doing more with technology, right? That's a real concern. So that technology will somehow make people obsolete. And, how can technology improve learning, teaching, and assessment while there is such pressure on funding, both in all across the sectors? So I think it's a little bit like Groundhog Day at the policy level. We seem to be a leader in research and innovation and many other good edtech areas, but I don't think when it comes to policy, we are leading. So there's a couple of things I think our members are very passionate about. One of them would be, it would be great, and I do tell policymakers this again and again, to have more official endorsement and support for use of learning technology. That always involves risks, but it also can have great results, and having more support from government would be useful for them to be recognizing in active terms that institutions make an effort to use technology and reward that or recognize that. Yeah. But also there are some practical things. For example, we've long been campaigning for government to, for example, mandate that all publicly funded educational resources and research are openly accessible and openly licensed. Yep. And we've gone part of that way with open access publishing of research. But when it comes to resources in learning technology, we're not there yet. There's no sort of policy mandating that publicly funded resources are openly accessible. And I think with exercises like the Teaching Excellence Framework or the Research Excellence Framework, I think there's some very traditional metrics on how we measure the impact of research and teaching practice. So, for example, is a blog post, if it's, on a very well-visited blog, is that as valid evidence as a research article? I think we're lagging behind in that recognition.
What's your opinion on TF for higher ed?
Well, we've, as an organisation, we've contributed a lot to the consultation process for the TEF, and I think we've seen many of the medal winners are our members. So I'm pleased to say that I'm sure you could do some sort of research where you can find a correlation between being a member of ALT and winning a gold medal. But I think ultimately I think it is to be determined how valuable as an exercise it will be in the long run. And I do think, because we know a lot about the limits of technology and the limit of what data can tell us, I think maybe our community is possibly more critical as a whole, to generalize a little bit here, on the limitations of what this type of exercise can tell us, and the limitations of what the data and the statistics that are the basis of the exercise can tell us, and what it can't capture, and the things that we feel are important that it can't capture.
It's kind of like our obsession with listicles.
Definitely. Yeah, there are limits to what technology, I think, can capture, and we're very aware of those, but it's so inconvenient for things like the TEF or the REF, sort of big national exercises.
Well, you mentioned before that you travel a lot with work, and I just wondered if when you're traveling around, if there are particular countries or organisations where you think, yeah, what they're doing is spot on, and also whether you had any favourite learning technologies of your own as well that you tend to kind of get excited about.
Oh, that's a great question. Well, in June earlier this year, I went to the annual conference of the Irish Learning Technology Association together with one of my colleagues, Martin Hawksey, and we both presented at the event. I think I often get the chance to travel to other professional body organizations like this one, and I think the ILTA conference is one of my favorites. They have a really lively, strong learning technology community in Ireland, and it was a fantastic 2 days where we could really see how technology is starting to scale up. So that, from one case study or one individual enthusiast, it sort of branches out across the whole of the organization. And there was a lot of good work being done then, both from the Dublin Institute of Technology, for example, was really strong. So I think that was one of the highlights of my sort of conference attendance this year. And there's always, I think particularly around open education, some really interesting events that I haven't been to yet. So, for example, I think around this time of year, there's always the digital pedagogy. I think it's called a lab, which is with Bonnie Stewart and others, which is taking place in Vancouver. Unfortunately, I don't get to travel to places like Vancouver that often. But I think one of my favorite ways of engaging with events or sort of things that are going on across learning technology community is online. So I'm a serial online attendee and a great enthusiast for taking part in sort of open online conversations, either on Twitter or on other social media. I do a lot of online courses as well, because I like to keep my hand in and do some, learning and teaching myself. So as my practice as a learning technologist.
Do you have like a favorite platform for that?
Oh, yeah, no, that's another good question. So as I say, I try out quite a lot of them. So I've done some courses on bigger platforms like FutureLearn or edX or Coursera. Last year, I did an interesting course on a platform called Scholar One, which was by the Geneva Learning Foundation, which was really interesting, which was a course about how to make a course on this platform. So that was really interesting. I think my personal favorite was an initiative or a course, well, it was a loosely defined course on rhizomatic learning, which was originated, I think, with Dave Cormier.
Yeah, I was going to say, I invited him to speak in a previous life.
Yeah, well, I really like his work and I'm really interested in rhizomatic learning, but it was a sort of Twitter-based course that you could blog about, and I did that for 2 years in a row, and I really enjoyed that because I think I love the flexibility of it, and I love that you can contribute and kind of make it your own. And where I am at in terms of professional development, I like less structure. Because my day-to-day life in my work has a lot of structure, a lot of spreadsheets, and a lot of deadlines and deliverables. So when I do a course, I'm kind of looking for something a bit more creative. So I really like the Rhizo courses, but I think it's now completely self-directed, and I haven't been as active in that. But I think Twitter is probably, in terms of my personal learning, the platform I use a lot, but I host my own blog and my own content via Reclaim Hosting, so do a lot of my own stuff online and try and keep it on my own domain.
I saw that. So that's marendeepwell.com.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I'm on it right now.
Well, I've been posting summer holiday things. So anything from, sharing my love for sci-fi to recently I've been reading a lot of great stories with a lot of female heroines. I'm really interested in equality, and because I'm such a sci-fi fan, when I was little, a lot of my heroes were all male characters like Sherlock Holmes or Commander Data or people like that, that were very real to me, or still are. But now I've started to discover a whole genre of books and writers where they have really strong female characters, including I think one of my new favorite creations by Garth Nix, which is The Good Wizard, which turns out to be a young woman who's really into shoes. So I really enjoyed reading that, and it made me think about how effortlessly we can change people's perception about equality and what professional roles for women are when we start sort of in the imagination. I gave a talk at the ILTA conference I mentioned earlier on equality in learning technology. And sometimes I think it's one of the areas where we could do so much more, but real change is very hard to bring about.
Absolutely. I mean, I want to launch this EdTech Women initiative, but yeah, exactly. Having role models in the beginning is a good place to start.
Definitely. And I think, there are a lot of inspiring practitioners across the community that, I think are doing so much to promote equality in all kind of different ways. But there is so much more to do. And I think sometimes it's sobering, particularly when you have a role like mine where you meet a lot of senior decision makers, and I have the privilege of being invited and sitting around tables. And very often, in the last sort of 5 or 10 years, I've been the only woman or the only woman in a decision-making role or the only woman with budget responsibility. And sometimes I think it's frustrating to me to see how far we have to come. And there seems to be still quite a way to go.
I would say so, yeah. You mentioned the inspiring practitioners. Have you got any people that you'd like to reveal to people listening in that you think would be good for them to go and seek out on Twitter, or any Twitter handles?
Oh wow. Well, I think there is a lot of them. Like our community, I think that's one of my favorite aspects of my job is that I do get to work with a lot of really awesome people. And I think there is many that I could mention. But I think starting, for example, so because ALT is member-led, we have trustees of ALT who are very active. Yeah. And I think there are some really inspiring, they're already inspiring, but it's inspiring ways to get started. So if you haven't already, so for example, our current chair is Martin Willer from the Open University. He also blogs at edtechy.net. So I would certainly recommend checking out his blog if you haven't already. Or there's Lorna Campbell, who's based in Scotland, and she works for Open Scotland. She's an exemplary, I think, open ed practitioner, really inspiring. Or there's James Clay, who is, I think, one of the most well-established learning technologists in FE, who chairs our FE committee. And I think he's one of the people who I discovered first when I started out. And there's, too many people to really mention.
And you have the ALTC, so ALTC hashtag for people that are tweeting around issues that are relevant to your membership and to your community as well.
Yeah, that's right. So ALTC is our hashtag, and it started off around our conference, which was every September, but then we've kind of adopted it all year round. And if you include the hashtag ALTC in your tweet, we'll try and retweet it. We share vacancies this way. We share news, blog posts, and we do. It generates sort of 500,000 Twitter impressions each year. So it's a very busy hashtag, but it's worth sharing. But also, I think we do a lot of what we do is all openly accessible. So if you go and, for example, look on our website, you can join in with webinars and read research. And most of what we do, you should be able to access freely. Obviously, I think everyone should join and become a member of ALT, but then you would expect me to say that.
Yeah, no, I've just had a look, and I know that the blog is really open for people to come and guest post on and become editors as well of their members. So,
but I think one of the things I like about our community is that many people who are maybe new to learning technology or who are new to blogging, who may have not written a post, can always get some support and feedback. So it's a good place to get started, particularly if you're new to learning technology or you're new to the UK sort of learning technology community. And it's easy to get involved, because you can either write a blog post or you can come along to a webinar or you can just start a conversation joining in on Twitter. So I think if your job involves learning and technology, hopefully there'll be something relevant to you. But because we do work across sectors, we're a really diverse community. There isn't just one voice.
That's interesting, because my perception originally was that it was very much for the higher ed community, but it's schools, further education and higher education. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we basically don't draw any lines at all. Everyone is welcome as long as they're interested in learning technology. And we also, as you say, we work across all formal education sector, but we also have members who work in work-based learning or in industry or for learning technology development companies or for, some of the big tech companies. So I think the important thing that we're interested in is being a learning technology professional. And where you work exactly and what kind of education you're involved in, everyone is welcome.
So, Maren, tell me a little bit about yourself as well. So I was reading up, and I know that we caught up last time. So you were born in Germany, and then you came here when you were 16. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I moved here basically to study, and then so my background is I trained in fine art first, and then in anthropology. And I was really interested in material culture. And I think nowadays I kind of still explore that because I'm really interested in the relationship between people and technology. And that's really what, where my sort of personal research interest lies. But I started working as a learning technologist as a PhD student. I did my PhD at UCL. And that's when I started kind of working as a learning technologist. And that's also when I started working for OLT. I started working part-time while I was still a student. So it's been a really interesting area to discover because I think, like many other learning technology professionals, I don't have a sort of learning technology background. I think many of us kind of arrive at this point and think, oh, this is interesting. And yeah.
Well, I love your interplay and your interest in science fiction and technology, because I'm sure that must help you ask or at least think about some of those questions. And, do you have a particular science fiction character that you love?
I have many, but I think like many people who are quite techie, I think I grew up with, with StarTrek, and I grew up with this sort of vision of technology as a very benevolent force. Force for good. I think the sort of omnipresent computer that knows everything and helps you with everything must be one of the sort of key driving forces behind, I think, companies like Google, where they kind of try and engineer that and make that come true. I am very disappointed that there's no transporters because it would really help my life.
Yeah.
And I think personally, I'm quite looking forward to the AI robot Maren, because I have enough work to be getting on with. So I'm quite looking forward to that. But I think, Star Trek probably is what shaped my sort of vision of the future and of technology most. But my ultimate, I think, hero in terms of fiction is definitely Sherlock Holmes.
Have you ever been to, I think there's the Sherlock Holmes Society in the University of London Senate House? They have quite a lot of meetings there, I think.
No, I have to say I've never joined that or gone along to it. But I do reread the stories more than is good for me, I think, and more than I'm going to admit to.
And what do you think about the televised version?
Oh, I have to say I love all of them.
That's good.
I'm quite looking forward. I like all the different interpretations. And I think one of the things I like about Sherlock Holmes is that he's very interested in how to organize information in his head. And I think it's an interesting metaphor. He uses the brain attic, in which everything needs to be tidy and easy to retrieve, as a metaphor to explain to Dr. Watson how he thinks and why he knows certain things and is oblivious of others.
I need to tidy my brain attic.
Absolutely. I use that metaphor a lot. So, no, it's interesting. But maybe the actual future of AI and machine learning is slightly less romantic than my childhood visions based on sci-fi.
So, you're having your staycation, and then when you come back, it won't be too long before the OLT Annual Conference. I just thought to end, maybe you could tell us a little bit about, when that's happening and, who's involved and what people should expect.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So this year's theme is called Beyond Islands of Innovation, and the idea that we came up with the conference co-chairs, Pete Alston and Helen O'Sullivan from the University of Liverpool, is that learning technology has beyond its sort of islands of good practice and innovation to really scaling up and becoming the new normal. So our challenge to conference participants was really to write proposals about how we're scaling up technology, how we're implementing it, how we're reaching beyond the easily converted enthusiasts, and how learners are benefiting from that. It's a huge program over 3 days. We're expecting about 500 people. It's from the 5th to the 7th of September in Liverpool for the first time. And one of the themes this year, I think that I'm particularly interested in, is around empowerment in learning technology. So that's where we'll be going to be looking at supporting students through partnerships, looking at learners as influencers and developing skills and supporting staff. But we also have, we have 180 sessions in the program currently. It's one of our bigger programs in recent years. And we have some really good keynotes coming up this year. Bonnie Stewart is coming to open the conference. She's based in Prince Edward Island in Canada, and is one of the sort of leading thinkers on social media and use of social media in learning technology and working with students. And then our keynote on the middle day on Wednesday is going to be Sean Bain from the University of Edinburgh. And I hope that Sean is going to speak a little bit about her work with data and learning analytics. And then opening the third day is Peter Goodyear from Australia. So I think he's one of the speakers that we get to see very rarely here in Europe. He's based at the University of Sydney, and his sort of work is going to be on learning spaces and instructional spaces, which is one of the things that is another theme in the conference.
Awesome. So it's coming up very soon.
Yeah, it's it's 5 or 6 weeks away, so far too soon for comfort. But one of the other things I wanted to highlight, because I think it's a fun way to get involved. So whether or not you can come to the conference, one of the things we do, I mentioned the awards earlier, and our Learning Technologist of the Year awards are going to be announced. We're going to be announcing the finalists. And when we announce the finalists in early August, we publish them on our webpage, and everyone can vote for their favorite. And we have a special award called the Community Choice Award, which is openly voted for by members of the public or by our community. So whether or not you can come along to the conference, checking out the award finalists is always a good idea because they're all wonderful. But also you can vote for your favorites and hope that they win. So hopefully that will be another way to get involved online, whether or not you can come.
And if people are listening and they can come, the call for papers, is that all complete now, or can they still get involved in terms of speaking?
I'm afraid the call for paper is closed. And this year we have such a bumper program that we can't accept late submissions, but registration is still open until the 25th of August. And most of the conference is very interactive. So even if you don't lead a session yourself, and more than half of our participants do, there'll still be lots of opportunities to join the conversation and work together with others in workshops and join debates.
Brilliant. So hopefully the EdTech podcast is going to be up there as well, and do some recording. So we'll definitely drop all those links in the show notes and everything.
Fantastic. Thank you.
But otherwise, have a wonderful rest until then, and enjoy some time. Say hello to your cat.
Thank you very much. But thanks very much for having me on. I really enjoyed telling you a little bit about the conference and what we do at OLT. And hopefully, we'll see you in September in Liverpool.
And Maren, if anyone wants to follow up with you on Twitter, what's your handle there?
Oh, yeah. The best way to get in touch with me is just to tweet me at Maren Deepwell. It's all one word.
Wonderful. Okay, have a good one.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for listening, everyone. A big thanks also to EdTech podcast interns Marina and Lucy, who finished this week, and also to our amazing supporters on Patreon. If you've enjoyed this episode, please go to iTunes and leave a short rate and review. Go on. See you next week for our first ASU GSV Summit live recorded episode on games-based learning and neuroscience with Pearson, Pymetrics, Minecraft and Wonder Workshop.
Bye-bye!